further delay, the next explosive panel, a topic that I believe is relevant to everybody here in the audience, there in the networking. Hope that more people will come. Okay, who we have here, we'll do it fast and furious. We'll start from the left. Miss Olga Finkel. Olga came here from Malta. Olga is in WH Partners. WH Partners, that's Workaholic Partners. It's not an acronym, it's Workaholic. And they started as WH Law, now it's WH Partners. They advise on European law. Our firm is our partners on all the Maltese licenses, processes, highly successful, very reputable. She also understands in payments. And I'm really happy to have Olga directly from Malta here on stage. Next, we have Diana Scheinfeld, or known as Diana, simply Diana, like Rita or Madonna. People know Diana as Diana from payments. Diana is from the Flying Merchant, a boutique consultancy firm in the PSP space. Very efficient, very service-oriented, and we're really happy to have here, again, for the first time in a gaming event here on stage. We have Diana with us here on stage. Thank you, Diana. And first time I saw her from this morning, Ronnie Stern. Ronnie is also a payment executive and a VP manager in one of the leading binary option brand, 10 Markets. Ronnie was there also in Berlin now when 10 Markets stormed the affiliate conference with their Porsche cars and all these nice stunts. And I don't believe that anyone who didn't forget their party at that weekend. It was 1 month ago. So this is Ronnie Stern from 10 Markets. Next, coming up next, lawyer and compliance manager and chief legal advisor of MoneyNet Int. MoneyNet Int is a UK-based regulated service provider, e-wallet. They do lots of nice stuff, and the most important thing about them, they're doing everything completely fast. And this is what I like about them. And this is Tzachi, also known as Isaac Armoni. You have also a middle name, right? It's T, right? Isaac T. Armoni, Tzachi Armoni for us. Coming up next. Again, both of you, actually also Tzachi and also Keren are for the second time here in this OFXG Go Gaming event. And Keren, Migdal, Aviasaf, two names from payment optimization. Guys, payment, I believe, is one of the more known persons in the risk and fraud industry. She's been in VisaCal, she's been in 888, she's been in so many leading companies in very high roles, specifically in risk and fraud. And now she has a boutique consultancy firm, which since last event, it's not longer a boutique. They have lots of interesting work. And Karen from Payments Optimization, really happy to have her here on the panel of our payments. Again, for the first time on OFXG and Go Gaming, but not the first time that we're doing together an event. Stuart Ballen, actually the first event that we did together, I believe in Tel Aviv, first for you and for me, 2 years ago in the Hilton. It was together with the government of Isle of Man, sponsored by the Isle of Man government and Counting House, and it was together with Mr. Stuart Ballan. Stuart, I can't believe that he's 20 years in Israel, Stuart? Almost. Again, act like someone that from abroad with his nice mentality and professional mentality. And Stuart is the head of sales Middle East for Counting House. Counting House and PACnet, both are regulated by the Canadian authorities, very flexible and very reliable PSP. And I'm really happy to have here Stuart Ballen here with us. And last but not least, the moderator of this panel, I have an honor to have here Yael Sion. Yael has been working in large companies like one of Israel's leading banks, like one of Israel's leading telephone company, and after that she has been in 888, where she was dealing with payments, and after that we took her to our law firm, which it's a good thing to do, excuse me, the guys from 888, and I don't think that there will be anyone more suitable to moderate this payments battle but our own Yael Sion from our law firm. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tal. Thank you. Hi, guys. Stuart, I hope you know your latest article in Finance Magnet created quite a stir. It was called Payment Processing, Is Aggregation a Traffic Accident Waiting to Happen? Well, I would like you to explain and tell the audience a little bit about those terms, about what is direct acquiring and what is aggregated, what are the differences.
Okay, thanks. First of all, it's just great to see in the audience there's so many other payment processors, so it seems that we've got a topic that's of interest to everybody here. I'm going to use the term acquiring bank in answering that. Some people will or won't be familiar with it. When you go to make any credit card transaction, whether you're going to the supermarket or whether you're going online, you give your credit card, you wait 2 seconds for approval. That transaction went to an acquiring bank. The acquiring bank basically gives a green or a red light to say if that transaction was approved. So back to your question, Yael, about aggregation or direct mids. There are really two ways that you can process credit cards. The first one's by what's called a direct mid. Everything is absolutely transparent. The acquiring bank knows who you are. If you're a binary options, a gaming, an e-commerce, a forex merchant, all the cards are on the table. When you submit an application to your payment processor, such as us and some of my other colleagues who are here and in the audience, that application in a direct mid environment will subsequently be sent to the bank. The bank will know that you're a binary operator or a forex operator, etc. It'll probably know who are the directors of the company and the owner. The result from that application is that you get what's called a MID, a merchant ID. That's your channel for processing credit cards. The most important word there is it's your channel, nobody else's. It's dedicated to you. No other merchants on the planet, whatever they do, can risk your business. You're going to process credit card payments through your own MID, which is your own dedicated channel. Your own compliance people are going to look after it. Your own customer support people are going to give your traders, your players great support. And everything is absolutely under your control. And it takes time. It takes time if you want a direct MID. The bank has to go and check you. They have procedures. Who's ever been to a bank that works fast? Really. That's not really the reputation banks have. They're risk averse, they take time. So that's a direct mid. Aggregation is really the opposite. And aggregation, I think most of you will be familiar with the word, it's to collect things together. So suddenly, the acquiring bank actually doesn't know you, and the mid that's being used to process your transactions, whether you know it or not, might be used to process, for example, 10 different merchants. 3 binary, 4 forex, 1 fantasy, 2 gaming, for example. What you lose with aggregated solutions is control. So if any of those other merchants who are sharing the same MID, the same single channel to the bank, does something that the bank senses was not right, sees was not right, the acquiring bank can take a sharp knife and cut that MID. And everybody else who was sharing that channel is going to suffer. Immediately they're going to lose payment processing. So the big difference between direct MIDs and aggregating is that direct MID, you are totally in control of your own ship. The reason the article that Yael mentioned was about, is it a traffic accident waiting to happen? I think the last analogy is that if you're driving down a 10-lane highway in your car, and somebody quickly changes lanes, and it can create a pile-up, you had no control. You didn't know that that guy was going to do that. But it creates a pile-up, and all the lanes are blocked. That's, I think, the analogy with aggregated.
Thank you, Stuart. Can you please also tell us what type of merchants and in which verticals you prefer what kind of method?
So who uses direct mids and who uses aggregated mids? I think there's 2 parts to the answer. The first part is certain industries are complicated. 50 shades of industries. Some are whiter than others, some are a little bit grayer. For those grayer industries, which exist, you know, we're not the police here, they exist. Perhaps it's much easier and sometimes the only way to get aggregated mids. And that's the way it is. I think the concern, for me certainly, with all the direct versus aggregated is if you're a startup binary broker or a Forex broker, you're very excited by get rich quick. You promise the ability to be online in 48 hours. You can be sure at 48 hours it's an aggregated mid. The problem is if nobody told you. So you're very excited, you're trying to make your riches, you think you're going to be rich in 1 month with all the binary deposits, but you're actually being processed as an aggregated mid. I think one of the moral problems in the industry is you were never told. Because if you're told that you're processing as aggregated, and you understand what it is, you can make an informed decision as to whether or not you want to go ahead with that with all the risks. But if you're not told, you might get one phone call or one email that gives you a very undesirable surprise.
Thank you, Stuart. Karen, is there anything you would like to add?
Yes, I wanted to continue with what Stuart just said, and but to take it maybe to the more operational side. I like to look at it for the aggregator, which actually is called in the professional terminology payment facilitator, if you ever heard that. I like to look at it like kind of a super merchant. And since it's a super merchant, it has a superpower. Now you need to remember it because it's for better or for worse. So if you are, again, a new startup, a new binary or Forex or gaming, and you don't have any payment processing history, which is very crucial when you come to the bank, then you better go to the aggregator and start with that. But if you are already have like a very nice volume, monthly volume, then I think you should take control over your merchant account and have a direct merchant account. It's easier for you to handle things along the way. So I think you just have to think about 3 things when you come to choose between a direct merchant account or an aggregated account. You need to check the fees. Usually they will be higher if you're going to the aggregated option. You need to check how fast is the integration and what is your stage currently. And also you need to think about something that you don't want to think about usually, but the risk side. If you have a risk team, if you have anyone that can supervise these issues, then you can go and try the direct merchant account. Otherwise, it's not very recommended to do that.
Thank you, Karen. And regarding the risk, we'll discuss it later on. Let's talk about alternative payments, such as e-wallets and wire. Our law firm have a very good cooperation with MoneyNet. And Isaac, I would like you to tell us a little bit about those alternative payment methods. What is it? E-wallets, wires, what are the advantages of each one of them?
Thank you. First of all, welcome to everybody that came to the conference. So my name is Isaac. I'm the Chief Legal Compliance of MoneyNet. MoneyNet offers alternative payment services. We're an authorized electronic money institution based out of the UK. Our company gives solutions to the industry or industries, actually various industries, Forex, the binary, the e-commerce. We give services to accountants, to lawyers, to a lot of different types of businesses. We're familiar with every single one of the industries. And the way that we work is we actually open an e-wallet account for a company. They go through a little bit of, some say nightmare compliance, others say that it's a good compliance. And we like to know a little bit about our clients. We want to know who you are, what you're doing. The more you tell us, the more we feel comfortable with you when you come on board. But that also allows us to give you a really wide variety and range of services. Whether it's the pay-ins that we do, wires globally, we have bank accounts all over the world. We give international and local solutions. A lot of times, a lot of our clients. They come to us and they say, we work in this and that country and we have a lot of activity there. Can you give us a solution? We go out, we send our teams, our people, we lay all the groundwork that we need to do, and we do it. And we give them those services when it comes to the wires in and the wires out. The only thing that we do ask our clients is to play by our rules. And today the rules are emphasizing more on compliance, and they emphasize on doing things in the right way. We also have our electronic money where you can actually top up your account, you can do payment processing, you can issue debit cards to your clients, you can send it to them. And when I'm saying all these alternative solutions, I do want to point out that we do them in a little bit more safer way, and we also work with our merchants to explain to them our requirements, what is it that we need, KYC, etc., in order to continue to give solutions for a long period of time. I just returned from a conference in the United States. There's a huge problem today with banking. MoneyNet gives banking solution. We give you with a bank account. If you respect that bank account, you're going to have it for a very, very long time. There's a lot of faces here in the crowd that I know. They work with us for a long time. They know what kind of services we can give, and we can give them a whole variety of solutions. Not just the pay-ins, also the payouts. Not just that, the e-wallet. They can pay with this money. They can receive it into their companies. They can issue credit cards, and they can also process.
Thank you, Isaac. You were talking a little bit about risks, which was mentioned earlier. And the merchants are facing some kinds of risks in the industry. For example, chargebacks and fraud. I would like to ask you, Karen, can you please explain what are chargebacks and frauds, what are the differences, and what are your tips to prevent those? And I would just like to add that Karen is a highly regarded specialist for preventing risks. So please, Karen.
Yes, sure. So let's talk about risk management for a while, my favorite subject, by the way. So when it comes to merchant, usually they hear the word chargebacks and fraud. It's not the same thing. It's connected, definitely, but let's just define it. When it comes to chargebacks, then it's actually a financial transaction, and money change hands between the customer and the merchant. When it comes to, and the important thing about chargeback is that the customer initiates the transaction. Okay, you should have it in mind. When it comes to fraud, then it's kind of a black point, a black mark over your merchant account ID, and this is initiated by the issuer, by the way. The customer sometimes is not aware of that. Now, I think that sometimes it's very hard to differentiate between both of them, but what you should have in mind is that Visa and MasterCard, they have different compliance programs for chargebacks and for fraud, which is called fraud to sale, actually. So you should monitor both of them, because you can be in breach either for chargebacks, either for fraud, or for both of them, and then you are in a very risky situation if you are there. Now, when it comes to treatment or to how to deal with it, usually I tell my clients that the best way to answer it is to look for the chargeback source. Sometimes merchants think that it's kind of a mathematical puzzle or a riddle, but it's not. It's not like you should try and stay below the threshold. You should try to work properly. If you work properly, then you will not get these issues. A chargeback can be either a first party or a third party. A first party, it will be chargeback that usually comes out of service reasons, unhappy customers. And then if you locate that this is the case, you probably know what to do. You should have your service levels checked properly. And once it's identity theft or real fraud, then you will get it as a third party. Now, the way to analyze it is like to do some kind of a reverse engineering. You should take all these cases and then to see what happened on the call, what happened with the customers, what did you promise them, did you stand behind your promise, and what happened afterwards. And this is kind of the best way to treat that. So.
Thank you, Karen. One of the ways of dealing with the risk is going through a proper KYC process in order to identify the customers. So, Diana, hi.
Hi.
So, a part of being a dynamic payments consultancy firm, I know you have a really nice cooperation with the world's leader digital KYC. So can you please tell us a little bit about it?
Okay. At the moment, most of... Can everybody hear me okay? There we go. At the moment, most of the KYC processes are being done manually. And the problem with this is that it's not compliant across different AML jurisdictions. So with eKYC, we're avoiding... Louder?
Yes.
With eKYC, we are able to reach over 3 billion people across 208 jurisdictions. It's also automating the process. That means all of this manual labor is being wiped out. You no longer have to have a staff of 10 people to do the KYC verification. Not only that, it's also faster. Within 5 minutes, you can verify your customer, rock solid KYC verification, which completely eliminates fraud and reduces your chargebacks. So this is where we're moving towards. It's not a question of if you're going to do it, but when you're going to do it, because the laws are changing very quickly. And sooner or later, all of you that are in regulated businesses, it's no longer going to be a recommendation. It's going to be an absolute insistence that you have some stronger form of KYC. You know, it's very easy to copy a passport and alter it and send it a scan. But when you actually do the eKYC verification, you're shifting the responsibility from the merchant over back to the acquirer. The way it's done is that the customer has to actually access his own bank account in order to verify that he is a real person. And by doing this, you're automatically shifting the responsibility back to the acquirer. This is currently being done only by PayPal, and our company, who is working now with the Australian company called I Signed This, and it's a public company traded on the Australian Stock Exchange. They tapped us to do their to be the authorized dealer for high-risk industries for obvious reasons. We work with a lot of here in the audience. We work with you guys, and in order to be able to provide the type of service that will help you lower your costs and also to improve your processes across the board.
May I just add a bit? It's a great product because KYC is obviously very important, especially for regulated industries. And for those of us who work a lot in the gaming industry, this is extremely important. And the requirement for KYC usually stems from one out of two or both sources. Either it's anti-money laundering legislation and regulatory regulations, or the gaming regulation itself. While the threshold can differ and methods can differ, but it's still equally important. And quite often, actually, these days, I see in our gaming clients that we deal with in the law firm that they do KYC manually, exactly as Diana just mentioned. And yes, it's great to have copies of the passport or documents, but it can be very difficult to actually have assurance or sufficient level of assurance that this document, in fact, is authentic. It's very difficult to do. Yet, the regulators very often accept this method and are sometimes edgy in accepting the e-verification. And to my mind, the regulators should be actually educated as much as the merchants, because once you can show clearly that there is a higher level of security and higher safety in using this method, the regulators will be more open to allow their regulated entities, the licensees, to actually use this method. So it will be a great improvement.
Isaac? would you like to add something?
Yes. I do want to add something that I agree with Diana. KYC is becoming more and more important feature of doing business. Compliance and all the regulations and the requirements are forcing. It started in the United States and it's slowly and gradually moving all over the world. It's forcing companies to be more transparent, to tell what are the sources of funds. Anti-money laundering is becoming a very, very big topic. And I think the solutions that Diana is offering, we are using them on a daily basis. We check every single transaction, we monitor, we see this. And when you do that, actually as a bank, we can lower the risk. We can lower our risk and we can lower the risk for our clients. So our clients, when they come on board, they adapt a little bit to our KYC. They adapt a little bit to the monitoring and to the risks. And gradually, and in the end, they understand, we're going to talk about it in where the future is going, they understand that they have a solid bank account and the bank accounts don't close left and right like they do around the world for other companies. So KYC, KYC, KYC.
And eKYC, of course. Thank you, Isaac. Karen, is there anything?
Yes, I want to add something on the merchant side also. I know that a lot of times KYC is kind of a burden that the sales team and the retention guys and everyone in the Forex or binary, they are very unpleased to do that because it's kind of a headache to try and ask for more information from the customer. But I think a lot of times, once you do this KYC, you learn about your customer, you know who he is, and a lot of time there is side effects. First of them is a psychological effect on the customer itself, because he knows you have details and documents, so he will think twice before going to the bank and submitting a chargeback or saying that something was wrong, also for the regulation. And the other thing is that these documents can really, really help us when we want to represent the chargebacks. And we can actually win if we have the documents and we need to identify the customer. So there is an added value to do that, since
yeah, for sure.
Not just regulation. Okay.
Thank you, Karen. Olga, back to you. As a leading European law expert and a distinguished IMGL member, can you please tell us more about regulations related to payment institutions and other specific licenses and certifications for PSPs? We know some are from Cyprus or Malta. For example, SafeCharge are licensed in Cyprus, while PACnet and Counting House in Canada.
Right. Well, for those of us who come from the gaming industry, dealing with regulatory environment in the payments is a breath of fresh air. Why? Because in the gaming industry, if you want to offer your services to UK and Denmark and Italy, you need a license in all these three countries, because there is no European level regulation of the gaming industry. Therefore, as an operator, you have to go to each of these countries and obtain the license there. Obviously, you have extra cost of compliance. There is a complexity in administrative setup and operational setup, and it adds to the compliance cost of the operators. In the payment industry, it's quite different, because there is a European-wide regulation. The payment industry is regulated by the Payment Services Directive, which was issued back in 2007, with the idea of introducing the single market for the payment industry to allow it to be more competitive, to allow it to be cheaper for consumers and for users of the services at the end of the day, and also to protect consumers, to ensure that the funds that they entrust to operators, to merchant, and also that used by, in transit passing through the payment service are secure. This is one of the main concerns, obviously, of regulating this industry. And from this point, from this perspective, if a payment service provider, PSP, is willing to be offering or wanting to be offering services to European customers, then a license in one European jurisdiction is generally sufficient. It doesn't mean that there is absolutely nothing this provider will need to do in other countries if the services will be offered there, because there will be need to notification. but it will be just a simple notification to the markets where the services will need to be extended. As a basic principle, there will be a home country where the PSP is established, and it will be regulated and licensed by the regulations in that jurisdiction. So the rules are more or less the same in the sense that they are covered by EU rules, you know, the threshold, the requirements for own funds, the requirements to prohibit commingling of own funds with player funds. They apply across the European Union and every country, regardless of where you want to obtain your license. And therefore, it's a little bit more difficult to compare different countries, how they deal with regulation and with licensing. It becomes more of a holistic approach, whether you can approach the regulator, when you can discuss your particular requirements of your service, when you can see that particular service fits or will be interpreted as fitting within regulatory framework or not. And usually some countries are more flexible than others. It's not to say that they are less stringent in their regulation. It's definitely not the case, because once again the bottom rules are still the same and they apply for every country. But it helps when you can go to the regulator and approach the regulator and discuss certain requirements there. Overall, once thinking about where to establish and where to license your operation, you have to think about the holistic approach, regulatory approach, and also reputational approach. You compare, or you rather put in one sentence Malta and Cyprus. I have to tell you that Maltese regulator is not very happy when this comparison is done or mentioned, and I guess the reason understandable for everybody. In my practice, I have not, for example, seen the cases when BaFin, which is the German regulator, questions the licensee coming from home country, being Malta. But we did have a few potential frictions when certain licensees were coming from Cyprus and were trying to passport their services. Because within the EU, as I mentioned earlier, there is a passporting right. So overall, the holistic approach should be taken. And from the regulatory point of view, now a very recent development is that last month the European Parliament voted on PSD2, which is the revamp, so to speak, of the Payment Services Directive. And mainly what it does, it extends further the scope of regulated services. PSD1 was regulating payment services, money transmission, execution of payment transactions, but now even third-party providers will be regulated, such as those companies that offer accounting services, account information services, and also those companies that offer a banking bridgement services, like you mentioned earlier, that you can use it for payment services without needing a payment card. So the scope is widened once again. The security and rules for secure authentication will also be higher, and there will be approximately 2 years for everybody to comply with them.
Thank you. Moving a little bit to the merchant point of view, we have with us today Ronnie, who is a VIP manager and the senior payments executive, working in one of the top websites. And I would like you, Ronnie, to tell us, as a merchant, when you come to choose a PSP, what are you looking for?
Well, the first thing that we look at, obviously, is the personal relationship that we get into with the people representing the company in front of us. Because at the end of the day, we are in an industry that we're working people in front of people, and it's important to know that you have someone to trust on the other side of the phone. You know, I can tell you that we call our account managers more than we call our banks, unless it's MoneyNet, no. But it's really important to have someone to trust. Also, the availability of a processor is super important for us, because we want to know that our clients have someone to trust. Because we are all at the same boat, you know, we all want the same thing. Our clients want to deposit, we want them to deposit, and the processor wants them to deposit. So if we have someone that we can trust on, if we have someone that is in our side and in our team, that's the first thing that we look at. The second thing, obviously, is also, if I'm going to go back to the point of KYC, it's important for us to have someone who understands the risk management. We are a new company. We're not a company that has been here for 5, 10 years. We are new in the industry, not in the industry, but as a company, we are new. So it's important for us to have someone who understands the risk and is willing to help us to use their knowledge and basically make our company a better company and a more strong company.
Thank you, Ronnie.
I would be happy and to congratulate and to thank our panel members